afternoon, everyone. This is Nithin Ramachandra from the NR Media Sports Show, back with another episode. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone had a great Easter weekend. And today we have a special episode. We finally made this happen. It's in the books. All the fans was waiting for this to happen. So before we introduce her, I just want to introduce my co-host for today. On the top left, we have Jeremy Fishman. Go check his stuff out. He does a great job with his stuff. And today, fans, I know everybody was waiting for this. We have Emily Ehman. She's a talented, inspiring sports reporter from the Big Ten Network. And a little birdie told me that she used to play volleyball back in the day at Northwestern University. Man, what a great talent on the court, off the court, and even covering games. And she got to cover Purdue this season at the March Madness. So we'll get to all of that. She's amazing. She represents women in sports big time in the sports industry. And then, like I said, we finally made this happen. I know we've been going back and forth trying to lock this down, and we finally did. And fans, please tune in. Everybody knows about the Street Grab. You can ask questions to Emily today. So please tune in there. And Emily, I just want to say thank you for joining us. I know it took a long time. We're finally here, and I can't wait to learn more about your story. And I've seen your recent interviews on past podcasts, and it's awesome to see your growth in this industry. But Emily, thank you. How are you and your family doing today?
Good, thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited we made it happen. No, I always love doing shows like this to kind of dive a little bit deeper. So I really appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, no problem. Jeremy, you want to start off first?
Yeah, I'll start. Thank you for coming on today. We both really appreciate it. My first question is, what attracted you to Northwestern? Because currently I'm a high school athlete, and although I don't plan on playing at the college level, Northwestern is an option that I've been looking at.
Yeah, I mean, the question I think is like, what isn't great about Northwestern? I mean, for me, of course, going through the recruiting process, I wanted something that was going to be top notch in academics and in athletics. And for me, I grew up in Bloomington, Indiana. So I grew up around Indiana University, big college town. I feel like I kind of had a taste of, what college was like while I was still exploring my options for where I was going to go. And I kind of looked at, again, just academics and athletics. I wanted to make sure that I was going to one of the best journalism programs in the country, because I've known what I wanted to do in sports broadcasting since I was like 9 or 10 years old. So I always knew that I wanted to go to one of the best journalism schools. And when I went through the recruiting process, I really kind of only looked at schools that had one of those really good top-notch journalism programs. So I was looking at, Northwestern, Cornell, Syracuse, schools like that, where I knew I was not only going to get those top level of athletics with volleyball, but also academically that was going to challenge me, that was going to set me up for success once volleyball and once college was over. So I went on a visit to Northwestern my sophomore year of high school and instantly fell in love. I have family that's kind of from around the area. So I always grew up coming to Chicago. It's one of my favorite cities in the entire world. And Northwestern was always kind of a dream school for me. And I remember stepping on campus and just being like, where do I sign? I mean, I fell in love instantly. I loved the campus. It's absolutely beautiful, right on the lake. You can see Chicago from there. The facilities were, we were told they were going to, undergo renovations. And by the time I was a senior, I mean, we have some of the best athletic facilities in the country now. And that was a big pull for me as well. I was initially recruited by a different coaching staff, and my freshman year, we had a new coach come in, but it was all awesome. I mean, no doubt in my mind that I was going to stick with it and play for him, Shane Davis, and absolutely loved all my 4 years there. I mean, it definitely tests you academically, but it is one of the most special places, I think, in the whole country.
Wow. I love that. Thank you.
Hey, before we go any further, I got to ask you, being in Chicago, what's your favorite place to get a deep dish pizza?
Oh, good question. No hesitation, Lou Malnati's. They have the absolute best. The crust is better than anything else you're going to get. Just a quality pizza. Anytime I want deep dish, I always go to Lou Malnati's.
So I got to ask you, how did your journey start as a volleyball player? Obviously, volleyball is a tough sport to play, and not many people know how hard training goes into playing volleyball. But for you, how did you start playing volleyball?
Yeah, I mean, I was, similar to a lot of, women or girls my age growing up. I played pretty much every sport in the book. So I started off in like ballet when I was 2, did gymnastics for about 10 years. And then I got into other sports. So I played basketball. I was big into track and field. I did cross country for a while. I started playing volleyball in, I believe it was 4th grade. And at the time, my uncle was coaching for Indiana, and he had a daughter that was my age. She was a year older, and I, to this day is one of my best friends. I always looked up to her, and she played volleyball, and I wanted to be just like her. So naturally, I ended up picking up the sport. And I think from the, really early on, I realized it was something that I really loved and something that I was decently good at. And, when you're younger, it's always fun to be good at something. So I definitely fell in love right away. I joined my, middle school team in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and then started playing club when I was in 5th grade. I was a 9-year-old playing on like a 12s team. So I always kind of played with older girls growing up, which was really great. I mean, I learned to develop at a higher level. It gave me a new friend group that was, a little bit older, but I mean, I fell in love instantly. And I think I got a lot more serious about it in high school. I played for a smaller club in Bloomington, Indiana until my sophomore year. And then once I started going through recruiting, I realized I needed to be at a bigger club, a more well-known club that was going to get me to the next level. So I ended up playing for a club in Indianapolis, which was about an hour drive both ways, that I did like 3 to 4 times a week. It was definitely grueling. But I mean, it all shaked out for the best. And I was playing on an awesome team with really great coaches, and the recruiters at my club were amazing and had so many connections to the college game that I don't think you can necessarily get if you're playing for a smaller club. So I definitely got a lot more serious about it in high school. But I mean, I kind of fell in love right away when I was about 10.
Wow, that's amazing.
Is there anything that you wish you've done differently throughout playing volleyball, either at the college level or high school level, that you kind of think back on and want to change?
It's a good question. I kind of live my life. I don't want to say like no regrets, but I love where I'm at right now. And I think if I would have done anything differently, maybe I wouldn't have ended up where I am right now. I mean, once I got to college, it's definitely a different game. I mean, everyone that's playing in college, no matter what level you're at, you were probably the best on your high school team, probably the best on your club team. And then you enter a space where everyone feels like they should be the best, but you're not. You're competing against other people that probably played at a better club, or probably better than you, or more highly recruited than you. I ended up walking on at Northwestern, so I was kind of told from pretty early on that I was going to have to fight really hard for a spot. And I think for me, I wasn't necessarily going to college to become a volleyball star. I mean, again, I really wanted a good journalism degree out of it, and I wanted to be on a team, and I wanted to be at a team that was competing at a really high level. So, for me, I don't necessarily think I would change anything. Maybe if I worked a little bit harder, I could have seen the court more. But for me, that wasn't necessarily a big deal. Like this sounds maybe dumb, but I really liked being on the bench. Like I was the biggest cheerleader out there for 3 years of my career. Senior year, we had a lot of injuries, and so I ended up starting most games. But it was so much fun. I honestly wouldn't really change anything, because again, I love where I'm at. I think, my path is unique in a sense of being where I am, how I got here. And I don't necessarily think I would really change anything, because I love where my life's going right now.
Oh, and you speaking of Northwestern, you spoke about Shane Davis, and and the rest of the coaching staff. You guys had a great coaching staff: Maggie Epbright, Pedro Mendez, and Luis Richard. Can you talk about all the coaching staff, and obviously what did Shane Davis mean to all of you guys?
Oh my God, Shane is truly one of my favorite people on the planet. Again, I was recruited by a different coaching staff coming in, so I didn't know really anything about Shane. He was coming over from the men's game. He had just won back-to-back national titles at Loyola with their men's volleyball program, and this was his first time coaching women. So I don't think any of us knew what to expect, but upon meeting him, I mean, his intentions are so great. He really wanted to build up Northwestern into a powerhouse program, and I think we've seen every year that program is getting better and better. I mean, I came in and I think we maybe won like 3 Big Ten games. Like we were so bad. But I think the culture that he created there was so genuine, so great. Everyone, is playing for the other person. Everyone loves that coaching staff to death. All the current assistants that are there, I didn't actually play under, but I mean, I've got the chance to know them just throughout my job now, and they are absolute outstanding people. One of the ones that I did have, Kristen Kelsey, who is now an assistant coach at Minnesota. I mean, she is one of my best friends to this day. She came in my senior year, and we just clicked right away. I mean, I absolutely love her. I would run through a wall for her. And I'm happy that she stayed in the Big Ten. One of our other assistant coaches who was there for my freshman, sophomore, and junior year, Erin Virtue. She is one of the best coaches in the game. She now just took the head coaching job at Michigan, but she was with USA Volleyball as an assistant coach for the last few years, helped them win gold to, USA women indoor, their first gold medal in volleyball in that sense. And, being under such amazing coaches, I think it really helped, of course, develop me as a player and all of that, but not only that, as a person. And I don't think I would be where I am without them. They've been a massive help to me in whatever capacity that means, whether it's, volleyball related or life related, work related. I know that I can always go back to anybody on that coaching staff that I was under and really just know that they have my back. They want the best for me. I know that they would do anything for me. So I have nothing but great things to say about truly everyone that coached me, but no, especially Shane Davis. I mean, he was kind of all like our second dad. And that was something that I'll never forget and always appreciate.
It's really cool, really cool. Did you have any pregame routines that you would stick to while you were playing?
And not necessarily routine, but you could always catch me on the dance floor in the middle of our locker room. I mean, I was always kind of the hype woman of our team. So, before games, going over scouts, of course, and all of that, but I was just doing my best to hype everyone up. And that was kind of, I knew that was my role on the team, and I really embraced that. But in terms of actual routines, I mean, I pretty much always ate pasta before games, but that's, not too exciting. But other than that, no, I was in the locker room trying to get everyone hyped for game day.
Wow. So you got your journalism degree at the Middale School of Journalism, and and also obviously Northwestern. But speaking of fellow Northwestern alum, Mike Greenberg is a big one for ESPN. So did you ever? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you're connected with him now, but when was the first time did you connect with him, and what are your thoughts on him as he is one of the best in my opinion on ESPN?
Yeah, well, it's fun with Medill because they actually do a lot of, networking opportunities and events and bring in a lot of really famous alum. I've actually never had the pleasure of meeting him, but I have had so many different, coworkers or, students back in Northwestern that have met him and just have nothing but great things to say. I mean, I watch Get Up all the time in the morning, and he's just an absolute star. He's so funny. He's so good at his job. But when you look across the board, I mean, Northwestern has so many incredible graduates, especially in the the sports landscape, that I think have really changed the game. I mean, you look at someone like Mike Greenberg, Wilbon, another one that's incredible. And then, some younger people coming up as well. I'm really close with Megan McEwen, who's one of Big Ten Network's women's basketball analysts. And I mean, she does a variety of things now because she's so talented, but you look at the output that Medill has in terms of, sports broadcasters or sports writers, reporters in general. There's so many incredible people. And that was one of the polls to Medill, to be honest. I mean, when you look at the people that they're putting out, they're top notch pretty much right away when they graduate. And I think going through school, you realize how talented everyone is. I remember my first sports class. It was like an intro to sports writing, and everyone around me had been doing what they had been doing for so many years, where, the sports editor of their high school paper, or, was currently the sports editor of Northwestern's, paper doing sports. And it was so cool to see such accomplished people, in the room with me, and knowing that, they're going to have so much success, and I would as well, which was, really exciting. And again, another pull why I wanted to go there.
Funny you said sports editor, as I'm currently the sports editor of my high school paper.
Nice.
What was the biggest piece of advice you've gotten from anybody that put you where you are today?
Yeah, I think, in terms of work, I think I've really learned, and, I preached to me at a young age when I was in college, is just the importance of getting reps. I mean, And if that means that that's in your sport, if that means that's in work or whatever capacity that is, it's so important. For me, I always knew, the best way in sports was to get better, was to practice and to get reps, whether it was passing reps, serving reps, whatever that may be. That was really important to get better in your craft. And that's something that I still kind of hold on to this day is, you can't get better at what you're doing unless you're doing it. And, if that means that you're tied to a network or a team or an organization, it doesn't really matter the way you're getting reps, whether you start a web show on, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it is. I took that path as well before I leached on or jumped onto the career that I have. It's just important to get those reps and to keep pushing. And then I think the other thing, which I tell people all the time, is just to shoot your shot. I mean, you never know where a random email or a direct message or anything can lead you. And whether that's, you pitching yourself to, a producer, an editor, whatever it is in terms of work or life, you never know how it's going to end up. And I always say, the worst thing someone can say is no. And in that case, you're back where you started anyway, but at least you took the chance on yourself to show them that that's something that you want. And that's something that I've really tried to do throughout my career is, I'm emailing or calling people all the time just to, show them who I am and to pitch myself to them in whatever capacity that is. It's how I've honestly gotten any job that I've gotten, is just randomly emailing people and explaining to them why they need me to work for them when they really don't. But that's something that I really find important, especially in the workplace, is just shooting your shot, because you never know where it's going to end up.
Yeah, that's what we're doing too. Reaching out to people and
Yeah.
sending emails and getting opportunities. That's the main thing about this industry. You got to keep networking and connecting with people.
Yeah. I mean, for me, that was the biggest way that I launched my career. I mean, I graduated in March of 2020, and it was literally the worst possible time to try to break into sports. And, no one's hiring. I knew I wanted to be a broadcaster, but I had almost no reps from college just because I was busy with volleyball. And I ended up doing the same thing. I started a web show all around Big Ten volleyball, and I was just interviewing players, coaches, alumni, anyone I could get in contact with. And that really kind of started my career off in the volleyball space and really helped me where I am today. Getting jobs with first Athletes Unlimited, and then with Big Ten Network, and then to ESPN. I mean, I've really just tried to grow from where I started, and, again, shooting your shot, you never know where you can end up.
Yeah, speaking of that, what's it been like for you transitioning from the court as a volleyball player, working on your dream at the same time while playing and studying, and then eventually getting to your goal with covering games and being on a microphone and interviewing players and being an athlete yourself? So what's that been like for you, the transition from a player to a reporter and interviewing players that being in the same situation where you've been?
Yeah, I think it really helps, especially, when I'm covering volleyball specifically. I think it helps for them to know that I was in their shoes. I was going through the same exact things they were going through, whether, they had a really tough week of practice, or they're having, to try to balance all these things with academics and a social life and, family stuff and what have you. I think the biggest thing that it's done for me is the ability to relate to the people I'm covering. And I think that's also not just for volleyball. When I cover a football game or basketball, whatever it is, I really try to relate to those players in a way where they understand that, I've been there and I get what they're going through, whether that's good or bad. And I think that's one thing that athletics really gives you, is that ability to connect with the people that you're covering. And I'm so grateful to have, had that opportunity to do so and really learn the ins and outs of college athletics. I mean, you learn so much being a college athlete, time management, hard work, determination, all of these things that I don't think in the time you don't really realize that they transfer to, your work life and whatever industry you're working in. But, once you start working, you kind of, something clicks and you say, okay, I now realize why all those little things were important, whether it was being early to meetings, cleaning up after yourself, things like that I never thought were volleyball related, but just life related. And I think just being an athlete in college really gave me that, perception that I now understand was really important, being in the role that I am. And again, just being able to connect with players, I think, is huge for me. One of my favorite things is interviewing people, and whether that's a 20-minute sit down interview or a quick 2-minute post game interview. I always try to make the subject feel as comfortable as possible, chat with them a little bit before and after. But I think a lot of that definitely comes from playing the game and knowing that they know that, I was in their shoes once too.
Yeah.
Another great answer. Thank you. What was the hardest moment in your career and how did you overcome that?
Yeah. I mean, job wise, kind of like I was saying, graduating in March of 2020 was really difficult for me. As someone that knew from such a young age that I wanted to break into sports, and sports not existing at the time and none of these jobs existing at the time was really tough. I mean, I kind of like everyone did, I moved back home and lived with my parents for, a few months. But at that time, I was looking for jobs. There was nothing open, especially in the sports front. And, I started looking at other jobs, whether that was, marketing or sales or stuff that I thought that would be a good fit for me, stuff behind the camera just to get work. And it was really hard sitting there and not having things, go my way. And that was definitely really difficult. But that's also when I ended up creating the web show that I did, because, I knew that from such a young age, this was what I wanted to do. And I wasn't willing to give up that dream. So I started the web show and it ended up opening a lot of doors. But I think if I didn't have the pandemic and I didn't have, all those closed doors in the sports world happen, then I don't know if I would be where I am, because I probably wouldn't have started that web show. And maybe I would have gone and done something behind the camera or in production or, what have you. But I think for me, it was really a blessing in disguise of having those doors closed and kind of figuring out a way to open them myself.
Wow. Hey, I started this business around the same time you did, pretty much. So around COVID time, I started this business, and it's been running 3 years strong. And now we're covering games in person as a team and everything. It's just amazing to see our own work going up.
Yeah. I mean, it's great when you see that growth from the beginning, because you start something and you have this big dream of what it's going to become. And then, of course, there's no straight line to do it. So everything's changing all the time. But it's so cool to see, a show like yours, or, I think back to the show that I had, and to see it grow and where it can really be, and not be, maybe what you anticipated it being, but, being really happy with where it is. I mean, that's something that I think about a lot and am kind of really grateful for.
So you got to cover three NCAA women's indoor volleyball championship games, the college football playoff semifinals, the women's college world series. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What would you say the best one was out of the three? And obviously, I'm sure all of them are great, but what was the best one out of the three?
Yeah, for sure, the 2021 women's volleyball national championship. It was insane. So I was in Columbus for the Final Four. It was Louisville and Wisconsin, and then Nebraska and Pitt, I believe, or I might have one of those teams wrong, but whatever. And it ended up being Wisconsin and Nebraska in the national championship. And for me, that was really my first season covering Big Ten volleyball. And it was like the craziest thing to have these teams in the national championship, two teams that I had done probably at least 8 games for them each. So I feel like I knew these teams better than, anybody in that arena. I knew the ins and outs. It was so fun to cover for that reason, because I knew them so well. But I also was pretty connected to the teams at that time too. I know both of those coaches so well. I know what, both their seasons were to get to that point, whether it was injuries, overcoming adversity. In Wisconsin's case, having like 5 fifth years back that were, all American first teamers. It was so fun. And the game was one of the best college volleyball games in the history of college volleyball. I mean, it was a 5-set nail biter. It was absolutely insane. It was so much fun for me to watch these two teams battle it out that I knew so well. And it was a perfect storybook ending for Wisconsin, having all those fifth years back, one of them being my really good friends, and so fun to watch them and to cover an event like that in my first year of really doing what I was doing. I was covering on the digital end and was doing some studio stuff as well, but it was so cool to be there in person and to cover these teams. And it was kind of like a storybook ending for everyone, but especially, us at Big Ten Network. Like, there is nothing better when you got two teams in the finals.
Yeah.
Who in your life so far has been your biggest mentor or anything like that?
Yeah, I think, someone that I look up to and talk to literally on a daily basis is definitely my mom. I mean, she grew up around sports as well. Her brother was a big time basketball player at IU, so she knows sports really well. And I think she always pushed me, to not. I don't want to say like just be great at what I'm doing, but she really allowed me the opportunity to, love what I was doing. If I didn't like something, I didn't have to do it. And she didn't push me too much in that sense of, what sports to play and what clubs to join and all of that. But she really let me figure it out on my own. But then when I did figure that out, she really pushed me and inspired me to be the best that I can at whatever it is. And she's literally my best friend on the planet. I talk to her, just got off the phone with her, talk to her every single day. But she's definitely someone that I look up to a lot, works super hard, has the best head on her shoulders, is very empathetic and strong, and someone that, since I can remember, I've always definitely look up to in that sense.
So tell our fans about the growth of women's volleyball and a lot of young talented players in women's college volleyball and the team, a lot of competitive teams. So can you talk about the growth of it?
Yeah, I mean, it has been exponential. I mean, when I think about the growth just in terms of, how many people are playing right now at the high school level, it's the most growing sport for participation among young girls. And, that kind of says everything you need to know in terms of how many people are playing the game. I mean, in college, teams are getting better and better. We've seen a new national champion 2 of the past 3 years with Wisconsin and Kentucky. Texas won it last year, but we're seeing new teams get better. And then in terms of coverage, I mean, we're breaking viewership records left and right. We had a record shattering game last fall with Wisconsin and Nebraska. I was lucky enough to be on that call, but I think we had 585,000 viewers, and the most watched game before that was around 380. So, we're shattering viewership records. We have more games on TV than ever before. I know on ESPN side, there's been more games on ESPN and ESPN2 than there have been ever before. I know at Big Ten Network, I think back to, I believe around 2017, when we had our new coordinating producer come in, they were about half the games on TV that there are now. So, volleyball in terms of participation is growing so much, in terms of viewership is growing so much. And then just in terms of general coverage too, we're seeing more games on TV. I, in my position, am seeing more, writers for teams. Like there's teams across the country that have their own beat writer, which is not something that we've really ever had before. There were only a handful of teams that really had them. But I mean, the sport is growing so much, and it's been so exciting to see. And for me, it's been exciting to kind of latch on to that and really just ride the wave in terms of women's volleyball, because obviously it's something that I'm really passionate about, that I love doing. But it's fun that it's also growing at the same time, and getting to be a part of that has been so incredible.
And it must be extra special for you to be covering the sport you played already. So
Yeah. It's been honestly magical. And I think growing up, I mean, I never really expected to be in the volleyball space. I think especially growing up, the only women I saw on TV were, studio hosts or sideline reporters. And I kind of assumed that that's what I would do because that's what I saw. And now, I have people messaging or emailing me all the time saying, I want to be a volleyball commentator just like you. And that's something that I never had growing up. So it's really cool to see, the next generation get to see volleyball games on TV and see that there's a space where if they want to go into that they can dream about and, practice and train for.
It's so cool hearing you talk about being both on both sides of that. And what has been your favorite part about working with the Big Ten network? And
Oh, I love it. I mean, I think I really just love working around college sports. I find them just personally way more interesting than professional sports. I think the biggest thing for me, and the thing that I like doing the most, is really telling these athlete stories or coaches or teams. And that's something that I love doing every day. And whether that means the story of how a game is unfolding, the story of a freshman coming in that no one knows about, the story of a star athlete that maybe people don't know about. But I love the fact that working in college athletics, it's a cycle, and you only have people for 4, now maybe 5 years that get to come through, but you really get to tell their story kind of for the first time. So for me, that's definitely my favorite part, is, telling new stories about these athletes, coaches, or teams that people maybe didn't know before. that I think is very specific to college athletics rather than, professional athletics.
Speaking of Big Ten, I think the first time our team reached out to you was you did a video on Isaiah Pacheco. That's Rutgers is the neck of our. I live in Jersey, and we
Oh,
cover
nice.
we cover a lot of Rutgers here, and we cover a lot of Rutgers women's soccer, basketball, baseball, you name it. But can you talk about like the local, like especially Rutgers, because they've been growing big time, and now I'm happy for them, and get to cover it's special for us because we get to cover a local school near us, and just talk about the growth of them, and obviously seeing Isaiah Pacheco already winning a Super Bowl champion in his first year, and it's unbelievable to see.
Oh, it's been so fun. And I think just across the board, I mean, when Rutgers joined the Big Ten back in the day, they weren't very good at anything. And for me, I mean, specifically, I mainly cover volleyball, but also a little bit of football. And it's been so fun to see them, build up both of those programs. I mean, I think Greg Schiano is doing an incredible job with them. They're now becoming a school that, it's not just a guaranteed win. Like, people have to really fight to play them. They're a scrappy team. They have a lot of good stars on that team, clearly like someone like Pacheco, going on and having the career that he's had. But yeah, I mean, on the volleyball sense too, I mean, they got a new head coach a few years ago with Caitlin Schweihofer, and she is one of my favorite coaches. I mean, she built that program up from absolutely nothing. I think one of the seasons she came in, they had like 0 Big Ten wins. Like, they were just really bottom of the barrel, terrible. And I think, what we're seeing with most of their teams across the board is they're getting better and better, and they're competing at a higher level. Yeah. So for football and volleyball and everything, it's been so much fun to watch and to see what they're doing in men's basketball now. I mean, they're absolutely crushing it and gotten better every single year. And, still waiting for them to break through that barrier. Hopefully we'll see them in the tournament next season. But no, it's definitely fun to cover a school like Rutgers where, I don't want to say they're always the underdog, but sometimes it feels that way, which makes, for me, those teams are the most exciting to cover.
And not only Pacheco is a great player, but he's a great dancer.
Yeah.
Just want to rock. He even got me doing that.
Yeah. No, they got some fun guys on their team, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Has there been a moment where you've wanted to give up or you've come close to changing your career, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, I think, the only time where I really felt like maybe this wasn't the best for me was during COVID when, I there were no jobs available and I had no idea what doors were going to be opened. But I think for me, I've just naturally had this big sense of determination around my career from when I was, younger. Again, I've always known what I wanted to do, which, has really helped me stay motivated and staying true to myself and wanting to live out my dream, and kind of just doing whatever it takes to get there. So yes, there's definitely been times where things have gotten really hard, whether it was in the beginning of COVID when I didn't have a job and didn't know what the future was going to look like, or, during season, it becomes a grind. I mean, I'm very sleep deprived, really exhausted, going from place to place, not knowing what time zone I'm in. But I step back and I just think like, this is what I've always dreamed about. This is what I've always wanted to do. And I would give up so many things to make it happen. So for me, you always just think of that why. And for me, that why is, pushing volleyball, specifically pushing women's sports forward. And then just staying true to myself and knowing that this is something that I've wanted for so long and would give up everything to make it happen.
So tell our fans, what was it like? You got to cover the March Madness this year with Purdue, and obviously they went on a great. They had a great season, but for me, Purdue they always struggle in the tournament. But but what was the experience like just to be there?
It was very cool. So we were at the Big Ten tournament the week before, which was so much fun. I mean, it was in Chicago this year, which was easy because we got to just, drive, 10 minutes downtown to cover it. But no, I mean, March Madness is one of the most exciting times. I think you don't even have to be a basketball fan to be into it. Everyone's making brackets nowadays. I agree. It was definitely really tough watching Purdue go down in that first round. I mean, they seem to not be able to really figure it out in terms of when the tournament comes around. But I mean, I love Coach Painter. I think he's one of the good guys out there. I mean, I think he really knows what to do with this program. Still pretty young in his career and has a lot more that he can do. But I think the talent that he's getting in, the talent that he's developing, and what we've seen from that team, I mean, I think they should do better next. I mean, I would hope they would do better in the tournament next year. But it's been really fun to watch that program grow. And, especially since Painter took it over, to see, where they've gone in such a, relatively short amount of time.
And I feel like this tournament was wide open again this year. No one expected. No one expected Florida Atlantic to get to the Final Four, and also New Jersey represented well again with Prince and Fraley Dickerson. Last year was Sam Peters and Cian Hall, but this year, what's it like? What's it like seeing like new teams, a breath of fresh air, unknown teams to prove people wrong, and seeing UConn, I see UConn winning the whole thing too.
Well, I mean, I think that's the fun part of college athletics now. Like, we're always rooting for those underdogs. And I think now we're seeing those underdogs get more and more wins. I mentioned earlier with volleyball. I mean, we've had, new national champions 2 of the last 3 years, which has been so fun. We're seeing a crazy Final Four in men's basketball this season. It's not just the same teams and the blue bloods that are winning it every year. And that's, to me, it's making college athletics more exciting. I think the transfer portal has something to do with that. I think NIL has something to do with that. But I mean, to me, it's working out in a way that's really exciting. Like we see TCU in a national championship football game like that. What the heck? Like, who would have thought that they were going to make it there? I mean, to me, it's so exciting to see these, quote, underdog teams, or these teams that, haven't been there in the past, do it, because as fans, it makes it more exciting. You're always rooting for the underdog story unless it's, your team up against them. But I mean, I love it. I'm here for it. I hope it continues in the future. I hope we see new teams in the Final Four every year. I hope we see new national champions every year, and we'll see. But again, I think, the college sports landscape is evolving so much with all these different factors going into it that I think we'll see more and more of it. And to me, that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Do you have one favorite volleyball moment from either your time playing or your time covering the sport?
Oh, I'll give you one of both. So for my time playing, this isn't even something that happened on the court, but it kind of, I guess, speaks to how much I love my teammates and all that. But we were coming home from a game at Indiana. So it was about a 4.5-hour bus ride. Our bus breaks down, middle of Indiana, like truly middle of nowhere. Like, we couldn't have been less close to any big town. Bus breaks down. It's like midnight at this time. It's so hot outside. So our bus is heating up. We all go outside. We had to get a new bus coming from Chicago, like a 2.5-hour drive down. So we had a lot of time to wait. And we just played like games that you would play at like summer camp, like down by the banks. We're playing that all night. Played just a lot of different games. I don't think I've laughed as hard in my entire life. That was probably one of my favorite memories. Just, it sounds so cliche, but just like really team bonding and getting close to the girls that you're hanging out with and spending 24/7 with. I cherish those moments and think about them so often. And that's one that always sticks out to me as just being so much fun. And it, wasn't even game related, but it was really fun. And then working wise, definitely covering that 2021 national championship again was, I mean, just the icing on the cake to an incredible first season covering college volleyball for me. And to see Wisconsin win it all. I mean, I was really close with that program at that time. And still am to this day, but it was really exciting to see those girls, finally hoist up that trophy for Wisconsin to get their first national title. Their head coach, Kelly Sheffield, is an awesome guy, and it was so fun for him and to watch him do that. So yeah, those are definitely two, one from playing and one from covering that definitely stand out to me.
Yeah. Speaking of, I want to transition to women in sports, and obviously you represent that well, and I have 5 females on this team working with me. And what are your thoughts on the growth of women in sports right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's growing exponentially. And I do think, social media has something to do with that. I think people are really pushing, women's sports, whether that's, getting paid more in terms of, athletes, or just more women in these roles, whether it's broadcasting, behind the camera, production, whatever it is. I think there's been a really big push over the last few years to get more females in these roles. And it's been so exciting to see. And again, I mean, on the TV side, we're seeing viewership for, women's basketball, softball, volleyball just go through the roof in the past few years. We've seen massive investments from, networks like ESPN, and then, sponsors pouring money into these events and teams and NIL money. I mean, it's football, basketball, and then it's volleyball that's right there. I mean, we're seeing how much these female athletes are really worth. And I think from what we're finding is, in some cases, it's just as much as the male athletes. And it's really exciting for me to see. And then I think, thinking back again to when I was younger, there weren't many females that I could really look up to in terms of broadcasting. It was Sage Steele, it was Erin Andrews, and it was Sarah Spain. Those are the only people that I knew when I was younger. And I think now we're seeing so many females in so many different roles, whether it's doing play-by-play for college football, whether it's doing play-by-play for the NBA. We're seeing these women's sports leagues grow, whether it's a WNBA, for volleyball, the start of Athletes Unlimited. We're now going to have 2 more professional leagues coming up in the next 2 years. I just think women's sports is at a turning point right now, and we're really making big strides forward. Of course, we have a lot, I'm always thinking about it. We have so much further that we want to go, but I think, it's really happening at a pretty good rate, and we're seeing that growth year to year.
Speaking of the WNBA, everyone tune in tonight. The WNBA is live tonight in New York. Actually, one of my friends, Courtney, he's there covering it this year. So congrats to Courtney for getting the opportunity to cover the draft this year. So everybody tune in. All the players' lives are about to be changed. So good luck.
Yeah, an awesome league, doing great things. I mean, they are the most progressive league out there. I think the stuff they're doing is awesome, and they're getting a lot more coverage, which is great. And I'm definitely excited to tune in.
Yeah.
Are there any strides you hope that women's sports in particular take in the next 5 to 10 years that could see even more changes than we've seen already in the past 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think to me, the biggest thing is getting these national championship events on bigger scales. So I think from what we've seen, I mean, we've seen ESPN pour millions and millions of dollars into, women's basketball and softball. And I would love to see them do that for a sport like volleyball, really putting it on the biggest stages on prime time. I'm doing that a lot. I think that's one thing. And then secondly, I think just for women's sports in general, just talking about it more. Like, again, when I turn on Get Up in the morning, when I turn on First Take in the morning, like I want to see them talk about women's sports. I don't need to hear the same spiel about, Michael Jordan or LeBron, or like, I don't need to hear the tiniest updates in the NFL or NBA. Like, talk about the WNBA, talk about women's college sports, talk about women's basketball, talk about women's volleyball. I would like to see, it's very specific, but I think on a lot of those studio shows, I would love to see them talk more about women's sports and in whatever sport or capacity that's in. But just giving them more breadth and more coverage would only increase the coverage of women's sports and really push it forward in a way that I don't think we've tapped into yet.
So we're going to transition. You have time for fan Q&A, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
We got some fan questions that's popping in my app. The first question is from one of our fans. They want to know, what are your thoughts of UCLA and USC, UCLA moving to the Big Ten next year?
Oh, I'm pumped. I'm hoping I get to go out there and get some good SoCal sun. No, but I'm very excited. I think, for me, mainly covering volleyball, it's incredible. I mean, there's only been a handful, I think 10 or 11 teams that have ever won a national championship, and USC and UCLA are 2 of those teams. So, I mean, if the Big Ten wasn't already competitive enough in volleyball, it's going to be absolutely insane for years to come. And then I think just in general, the way that, the Big Ten and I think the Power 5 conferences are shifting a lot. To me, it's exciting that now, at least specific for the Big Ten, I mean, we stretch from LA all the way up to, New York City, basically at this point. So it's kind of fun to have, that map of now the whole country is kind of Big Ten country, which to me is really exciting. But I'm really excited for the additions. I mean, I think the caliber of athletics that both of those schools bring is absolutely insane. And it's going to shake up pretty much any sport in college for the Big Ten.
Okay, another fan question. They want to know, what's your favorite volleyball move?
Ooh, favorite volleyball move. You know what? I love a good pancake. So basically when a libero or someone's sliding in, you might think you can't reach the ball, kind of just like slide your hand under and it like bounces off. It's super hard to do. I've like maybe done it 5 times in my life. Some people are really good at it. But that's probably the most exciting thing that I love to watch, just because it takes a lot of skill and, you know, hand-eye coordination to do. But that's always really fun when I get to call a pancake.
Okay. One of our other fans, they're putting you on the spot right now. They want to know, would you take CJ Stroud from Ohio State #1 in the draft?
Yes. You know, CJ is interesting because I think he, obviously everyone can talk about how he's undersized and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, I think it's just a lot of it is his mentality, I think, goes a long way. And that's something that, you know, I don't want to say not a lot of guys, because a lot of guys do have it, but I think the mentality that he brings is just so elite. I'll say yes. We'll see. Let's see him go #1.
That's gonna be, yeah. Obviously the draft is coming up soon here.
Yeah.
April, so I can't wait for that. Another fan question: do people call you by a nickname sometimes? They want to know.
My middle name is Grace, and my whole family calls me MEG.
Oh.
Sometimes I get shortened to G. Most of my friends call me M. That's kind of it. But yeah, either MEG or M. Those are my nicknames.
Another fan question: they want to know, what's your favorite go-to snack?
Ooh, go-to snack. I've been obsessed with Pirates Booty lately, the like corn puff.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I've been buying like massive bags and bags of them, and I've just been downing them. So I'm gonna say that's probably my favorite snack right now.
All right. Another one is here. They want to know your most memorable interview you've done so far.
Ooh, most memorable interview. Probably probably Kelly Sheffield, the Wisconsin volleyball head coach, after they won the national championship. I remember being really nervous for it because it was like the biggest interview that I had ever done. And again, it was someone that, I mean, I know him very well, and you know, I remember being really nervous for it. But you know, he's a chatter, so he was chatting me up before, and it was so cool to hear his thoughts on how the year culminated into, you know, a national title. And yeah, I would say that was probably my most memorable, because it was, again, one of my most favorite, you know, games that I had ever covered in my life.
We'll take 2 more fan questions. Another one here. They want to know, what do you have? They want to know what's the most what's it like being a part of. They want to know what's it like being part of the women's volleyball history. They want to know.
Oh my gosh. Well, again, I mean, volleyball has exploded so much in the last few years, and I think I got lucky in the sense that I got in at a good time. And if I can help push this sport forward in any way, like I'm going to do that. I'm willing to do that. But I mean, it's just been fun to be a part of the growth. And if I have any small part in that, you know, I'm really happy to do it. I'm really proud of that. But it has been so much fun. And I mean, I hope we grow so much more in the coming years.
And the last question here from our fans, they want to know, what's it like, been like for you being on these podcast shows or networks, talk about your story.
Yeah, you know, I really like it. I kind of say yes to pretty much anything. I'm always down to hop on a show. I think, you know, for me, whether it's, you know, a college student or high school student reaching out, like I'm always willing to talk to anybody about, you know, my path, give some advice, help them out in any way I can. So, you know, I love doing them. I love coming on, and hopefully, you know, someone takes something from this, whether it's to go buy a bag of Pirates Booty, or it's, you know, something a bit deeper. But, you know, I always think, as long as I can kind of, you know, touch or inspire, you know, just one person, I think that's really important to me for the next generation to see that it's possible to, you know, be doing what I'm doing, and to really, you know, kind of grow in that way. So, you know, I love doing them. I say yes to anything. If anyone needs advice, shoot me a DM, send me an email. I'm there. It's always open. Inbox is open.
I think all of us should reach out to Buyers Booty to be our sponsors.
Yep. I would love nothing more for them to sponsor me. So I gotta figure that one out.
Jeremy, you have anything before?
No, I don't have anything. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And your advice was great today. And I appreciate that so much.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I love coming on, podcasts or shows or whatever it is. So, thank you guys so much for having me. I'm glad we finally got to make it work. And I hope I dropped a little bit of knowledge. I don't know.
You dropped some big knowledge. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you guys so much for having me.
And Emily, where can our fans find you on social media?
Yeah, so my handle on Twitter, Instagram is just my name. So at Emily Ehman, that's EHMAN. And also if you follow Big Ten Network, I'm their digital host, so you'll see my face pop up way too often. So give them a follow too.
Yeah, there you have it. Emily Ehman, talented, aspiring Big Ten sports journalist. Go follow her on Instagram, Twitter. She does an amazing job, and she represents women in sports really well. Thank you again, Emily, for coming on, and we got to have you back again soon at some point. And let me know when you're in the New Jersey, New York area. We got to meet up.
Yeah, definitely will do. Thank you guys for having me.
Anytime. Thank you.
Thank you.